Elias Ward crouched at the edge of a jagged ridge, his visor flickering under the ash-gray sky. Dust clung to the creases of his armor, a grim second skin from days of trekking through the Deadlands. Beyond the ridge, the valley sprawled wide and lifeless, dotted with twisted metal husks, the remnants of a colony that never stood a chance. He adjusted the grip on his rifle, listening to the wind's hollow moan. "Scout Ward, report." The voice crackled through his comm, clipped and tired. "Command hundreds of kilometers away, safe behind reinforced walls. Moving west toward Grid 17. Signal stronger. No visuals yet." Elias replied, voice low. "Copy. Maintain radio silence after this check-in. We don't know what's out there." He clicked off, lips pressing into a thin line. He already knew. The last transmission from the colony spoke of something moving in the shadows, something too fast, too strong. Then silence. The rescue teams had followed, and then they too went dark. Now it was just him, the last thread between a lost world and the indifferent stars. Elias descended the slope, boots crunching over brittle bones and shattered glass. The signal beacon pulsed faintly on his HUD, drawing him toward the mountains looming in the distance like black knives. The further he moved, the quieter the world became, as if sound itself had been bled dry. Even the wind faltered. At the base of a collapsed watchtower, he paused. Deep grooves scarred the metal walls, 5 thick slashes as tall as a man. He traced a gauntlet finger along one of them, the metal peeled back like paper. Not a tool. Claws. Big ones. A flicker caught his eye. 50 meters ahead, a broken helmet glinted in the dust. Elias approached, kneeling beside the ruined armor. The Marine inside had been shredded, not shot, limbs torn at the joints, chest cavity hollowed as if something had fed. His jaw clenched. He'd seen bodies before, but this wasn't a battle. This was a hunt. The comm unit inside the helmet chirped once before falling silent. Elias tapped into its log, static flooding his ear, then a burst of frantic whispers. Not a creature. It's thinking, it's watching. A screech cut the transmission. Then nothing. Elias stood, scanning the horizon. The beacon's pulse now came from just beyond the next ridge. He climbed carefully, each step deliberate, rifle raised. As he crested the rise, the landscape opened before him and froze him in place. Below, scattered across the rocky plain, lay the shredded remains of an entire strike team. Their armored forms were strewn like discarded dolls, weapons twisted and useless. Blood marked the rocks in wide, deliberate arcs. But it wasn't the bodies that held his gaze. In the center of the carnage stood a figure. Massive, muscles coiled beneath scaled flesh, ridges of bone forming a natural armor along its shoulders and spine. Its arms ended in talons nearly as long as Elias's forearm, each tipped in gleaming obsidian claws. Rows of jagged teeth lined a mouth that stretched impossibly wide beneath dark, intelligent eyes. It turned toward him slowly, head tilting, not in threat, but curiosity. Elias's finger tensed on the trigger. The creature took a step forward, graceful despite its bulk, then another. It didn't roar. It didn't charge. It watched. Behind it, the beacon blinked steadily from the chest rig of a fallen sergeant. The creature had left it untouched, as if luring him in. Elias steadied his breathing. "You're not just an apex predator," he muttered under his breath. "You're waiting for something." The creature opened its jaws slightly, a low rumble vibrating the ground beneath his feet. For a brief, terrifying instant, Elias felt the weight of its attention, not as prey, but as something evaluated, measured. He slowly backed down the slope, keeping his rifle trained. The creature remained still, watching him retreat, making no move to pursue. Then, from the cliffs above, a sudden roar. Not from the creature below, but something else, mechanical and cold. Elias snapped his head upward. Dark shapes streaked across the clouds. Drones, sleek and angular, scanning beams sweeping the terrain. The creature looked up as well, its expression shifting. Its eyes narrowed, lips peeling back in something that might have been a snarl or a grim acknowledgement. Then it looked back at Elias. For a moment, Predator and Scout regarded each other, both recognizing the arrival of a new threat neither had summoned. Elias tapped his calm, words dry in his throat. "Command? This isn't a rescue op anymore." Silence answered. The creature crouched low, muscles tensing, not toward Elias, toward the skies. And then it moved, vanishing into the rocks with terrifying speed. Elias stared after it, heart pounding. The signal beacon pulsed steadily behind him, but he no longer needed its guidance. Something far bigger was unfolding, and somehow, impossibly, he was in its center. He slung his rifle tighter across his chest and followed. Whatever was coming, he wasn't going to watch from the sidelines. He was going to meet it head-on. Elias moved swiftly across the jagged terrain, boots crunching over loose shale as he trailed the path left by the creature. The tracks weren't random. They cut deliberately between boulders and ravines, weaving through the ruins as though the predator knew every contour of this shattered world. He kept his rifle close, eyes flicking between his HUD and the shadows ahead, pulse steady but alert. The drone swarm above had widened its search pattern, their beams crisscrossing the ground in sterile arcs of blue light. Once or twice, Elias ducked beneath overhangs as the beams passed close enough to singe the air. He could hear the faint hum of their engines, predatory in their own way. If they spotted him, there'd be no warning, no mercy. A sudden scrape of stone brought him to a halt. He swung his rifle toward the sound, finger resting lightly on the trigger. There, at the mouth of a collapsed tunnel, stood the creature. It was waiting. Its dark eyes regarded him with the same unsettling intelligence as before, curious, calculating. The jagged ridges along its spine shimmered faintly under the flicker of distant lightning. Blood still stained its claws, yet it made no move to threaten him. Instead, it stepped aside, clearing the entrance to the tunnel as though granting passage. Elias frowned beneath his visor. "You could have killed me back there," he muttered. "Why didn't you?" The creature tilted its head, then emitted a low, vibrating growl that wasn't quite hostile, but not welcoming either. A warning, maybe, or an invitation. He hesitated only a moment before moving forward, keeping a cautious distance as he slipped into the tunnel. Darkness enveloped him, save for the faint glow of his visor. Behind him, the creature followed silently, massive bulk gliding with eerie grace. Inside, the tunnel sloped downward, walls lined with ancient metal veins, remnants of the colony's mining operations. Deeper still, signs of recent conflict emerged, scorch marks, crushed equipment, the scattered bones of creatures both human and not. And something else. Symbols carved into the walls, strange and looping, pulsing faintly as though alive. Elias paused to trace one, feeling a subtle hum beneath his glove. This wasn't colony work. This was older, much older. The creature let out a sharp click, drawing his attention forward. It gestured with a claw, leading him deeper until the tunnel opened into a vast underground chamber. Elias exhaled softly. At the chamber's heart stood a monolithic structure, a black obelisk, humming with a low frequency that rattled his bones. Surrounding it lay shattered drone parts, their metal husks twisted and scorched. Whatever had fought them down here, it wasn't just brute strength, it was precision. The creature approached the obelisk, placing a clawed hand against its surface. Symbols flared beneath its touch, rippling outward like disturbed water. It turned back to Elias, gaze steady. "You're guarding this," Elias realized aloud. "Not feeding, not just killing, protecting." The creature's mouth curled slightly, Not quite a smile, but something close. It stepped back from the obelisk, claws flexing. Another sound rumbled from its chest, deeper this time, laced with tension. Then the drones arrived. They poured through the tunnel mouth in a metallic tide, wings unfurling as weapons activated. The chamber filled with a mechanical whine, high-pitched and lethal. Elias dropped to one knee, firing the instant his sights locked. Bolts of plasma seared through the dark, clipping a drone mid-flight. The creature surged forward beside him, claws flashing as it ripped the machines apart with savage efficiency. Steel and scale fought side by side, an improbable alliance forged under fire. Elias ducked beneath a descending drone, pumping rounds into its underside as the creature vaulted above him, crushing another underfoot. Sparks and metal shards rained around them, the air thick with the scent of ozone and oil. A drone lunged from behind. Elias spun too late, only for it to lone hand intercept it, slamming it into the ground with bone-cracking force. The creature roared, a primal sound that echoed off the chamber walls, scattering the remaining drones into retreat. Silence fell again, broken only by the faint hum of the obelisk. Elias leaned against a broken console, catching his breath. His armor was scorched, his hands shaking, not from fear, but adrenaline. The creature stood over the wreckage, chest heaving, eyes burning in the dim light. "You didn't lure me here to kill me," Elias said quietly. "You needed backup." The creature's gaze softened, just for a moment. It nodded once, a gesture as human as it was alien. Elias pushed himself upright. "What are we up against?" The creature stepped closer to the obelisk and pressed its claws against the symbols once more. This time, an image projected from its surface, a hologram of a vast fleet approaching the planet, their silhouettes cold and unyielding. Warships, carriers, drones by the thousands. Elias stared at the looming armada. "El," he whispered. The creature's gaze locked with his, unspoken challenge in its stance. They weren't done, not even close. The hologram shimmered, casting spectral light across Elias's face as the fleet's formation unfolded, a predatory constellation of ships, their angular shapes unmistakably designed for one thing: eradication. He watched as wave after wave of drones deployed from carriers, a crawling fog of destruction sweeping across orbital projections. The countdown timer in the corner ticked downward in silent dread. "For hours," Elias muttered, his voice scraping the stillness. "They're coming in for." Beside him, the creature's claws tapped rhythmically against the obelisk's surface. Its gaze remained fixed on the projection, unblinking, as though absorbing every detail. It straightened, muscles coiling beneath its hide as it faced Elias again. "You've fought them before, haven't you?" Elias asked, already knowing the answer. "That's why you're here. That's what you were left for." The creature inclined its head, a slow, deliberate nod. It stepped aside, gesturing toward a hidden alcove near the chamber's far wall. Without waiting, it stalked toward it, expecting Elias to follow. Inside the alcove, racks of ancient weaponry lined the walls. Blades gleamed under dim light, some etched with the same strange symbols from the tunnel. Among them rested a single, massive rifle, twice the length of Elias's own, its barrel coiled with cables, power cells embedded along its spine. The creature hefted it easily, slinging it across one broad shoulder. "Not just claws, huh?" Elias said dryly. "Guess we've both been holding back." The creature rumbled low in its throat, a sound almost like agreement. Elias scanned the chamber one last time. "You had a whole team, didn't you?" "Once." His words weren't a question. He could see it in the way the creature stood near the weapons, in the faint traces of old battle scars, in the lingering grief it carried like a second skin. The creature didn't answer. It didn't need to. A distant rumble vibrated the floor, deeper than thunder, closer than safety. The countdown wasn't waiting for them. The first wave had entered orbit. Elias checked his ammo, swapping out depleted cells, fingers flying through muscle memory. "All right," he said, squaring his shoulders. "You know this ground. You've survived this long. Lead the way." The creature turned, eyes gleaming with something fiercer than mere instinct. It bounded back into the tunnel, Elias close behind. They emerged onto a plateau, overlooking the valley. The sky above was fractured with contrails, streaks of fire descending like falling stars. Elias squinted upward, counting dropships slicing through the clouds, their engines shrieking against the wind. "First wave's landing west," he murmured. "Heavy units." The creature crouched beside him, scanning the horizon. Then, with a swift motion, it traced a pattern into the dirt, lines intersecting at key points, arrows denoting movement. A battle map, primitive yet clear. "You want to split them here," Elias translated, tapping a ridge marked by the creature's claw. "Force them into the canyon." The creature growled assent. Elias traced the fallback line. "That'll buy us what? 20 minutes? Maybe 30 before they overwhelm." The creature's gaze hardened. Elias sighed. "Long enough, huh?" He slung his rifle forward, double-checking his gear. "Then let's make them earn every damn inch." They moved down the slope, skirting the edges of the ridge, each step calculated. The creature leaped effortlessly from rock to rock, its movements blending into the terrain. Elias followed with practiced care, keeping pace as best he could. Ahead, the first dropships touched down, releasing their cargo in coordinated bursts. Drones unfurled like metallic insects, fanning out in search patterns. Heavy walkers lumbered after, their cannons swiveling methodically. Elias pressed against a boulder, heart steady. "They're sweeping for survivors. Don't know we're here yet." The creature unslung its rifle, a low hum rising from the weapon's core as it powered up. It glanced at Elias once, a brief, weighted look, and aimed. The shot ripped through the air like thunder. One of the walkers exploded in a shower of molten steel, its legs crumpling beneath it. The drones reacted instantly, their formation collapsing inward toward the source of fire. "Guess stealth's off the table," Elias muttered, raising his rifle and squeezing off bursts into the swarming machines. The creature roared, launching forward with terrifying speed, claws tearing through drone after drone. Its rifle fired between slashes, each shot precise, methodical. Elias moved behind it, covering flanks, tracking targets. Every motion was a dance of survival, a rhythm forged not in training drills, but in raw instinct and trust. A drone clipped his shoulder, spinning him sideways. He recovered, fired back, felt the heat of the creature's rifle blazing past his ear as it took the drone down. They fought side by side, predator and scout, against a tide that kept coming. The ridge funneled the enemy as planned, slowing their advance, forcing them into choke points. Elias marked targets, called shots, laid traps with grenades that funneled even more into the creature's claws. Minutes bled away, then more, and still they fought, until at last, the ground trembled beneath a deeper thunder. Elias looked up, breath ragged. Beyond the canyon, a new shape descended. A massive carrier, darker than the others, its engines pulsing with unnatural energy. The creature stiffened beside him. "No more scouts," Elias said quietly. "No more drones." He swallowed, feeling the weight settle into his chest. "That's the main force." The creature's claws flexed. Its gaze never wavered. Elias wiped blood from his brow, grinning despite the odds. "Guess we're not done yet." The carrier's landing gear deployed, kicking up a storm of dust and ash. Hatches groaned open. A new kind of enemy stepped into the smoke, and Elias raised his rifle once more. The enemy emerging from the carrier wasn't like the drones. Taller, armored in obsidian plates that shimmered with energy, They moved with unsettling coordination. Their eyes glowed faintly beneath their helmets, and in their hands they carried sleek weapons humming with restrained power. Soldiers, not machines. Sentient. Ruthless. Elias exhaled slowly. "We've got elites now." His voice was quiet but steady. He felt the creature tense beside him, its claws digging into the rocky earth. Together, they watched as the soldiers fanned out, methodical as predators, scanning the ridge and canyon where the wreckage of drones and walkers smoldered. The creature growled low, a sound threaded with defiance. It tapped a claw against the rock, pointing to a narrow crevice leading deeper into the ridge. Elias followed its gaze, understanding blooming. "A fallback position," he said. "We can't win here." The creature shook its head, not in denial, but in grim resolve. It gestured back toward the obelisk's location, tracing a quick circle in the dirt. Elias frowned. "That's what they're after." It nodded once. "They don't care about wiping us out. They want that." Elias's chest tightened. "That obelisk. It's more than a relic, isn't it?" The creature stepped closer, resting a clawed hand briefly on Elias's shoulder. It was a gesture heavy with meaning. Thanks, farewell, warning. Then it moved away, raising its rifle again, silhouette framed by fire and ash. "You're staying," Elias realized. His throat tightened. "You're buying me time." The creature didn't answer. It simply turned toward the advancing line of soldiers, bracing itself. Elias cursed softly, heart pounding against his ribs. No way in hell. He checked his rifle's last power cell, slapped it into place, and stepped forward to stand beside the creature. "We hold this line. Together." For a heartbeat, the creature hesitated. Then, slowly, it inclined its head, a warrior's acceptance. The enemy reached the canyon mouth. Weapons rose. Elias fired first. The shot struck the lead soldier square in the chest, exploding into arcs of blue energy. The soldier staggered but didn't fall, raising its weapon in reply. A barrage of plasma lit the canyon. Elias ducked behind a boulder as the creature surged forward, roaring, rifle blazing. The two fought as one, Elias weaving between cover, the creature charging headlong, a whirlwind of claws and plasma. The enemy pressed hard, each fallen soldier replaced by two more. Their formation tightened, forcing Elias and the creature backward step by step. Above, the carrier's engines flared. Something stirred within its hold. Elias gritted his teeth. "They're stalling too," he realized aloud. "They're waiting for her." A new figure descended from the carrier, landing with a weighty impact that cracked the canyon floor. Taller than the others, draped in ceremonial armor etched with alien sigils, it carried a long spear humming with energy. The creature froze mid-attack, eyes narrowing. The figure spoke in a guttural tongue, words laced with command and contempt. It raised the spear and pointed directly at the creature. A challenge. Elias's stomach dropped. "He's here for you." The creature stepped forward, rifle lowered, claws unsheathed. It answered with a rumble so deep the stones vibrated. Then it handed the rifle to Elias, pushing it firmly into his chest. Elias shook his head. "No, I'm not leaving you." The creature gave him a look, sharp, unyielding. It pointed again toward the crevice, toward the obelisk, and pushed him once more. The meaning was clear. Elias clenched his jaw. "You stubborn bastard." But he took the rifle. "You hold him off. I finished the job." The creature turned away without another glance, striding toward the armored figure. The enemy raised its spear, spinning it in a fluid, deadly arc. Elias ran. He slipped into the crevice, the sounds of battle fading behind him, replaced by the rhythmic pulse of the obelisk's hum. The chamber awaited, bathed in dim light. As he approached, the symbols along its surface flared brighter, reacting to his presence. He placed his palm against the obelisk. The hum deepened. A holographic interface blossomed from its core, filled with alien script. Elias's visor struggled to translate, struggling with context and syntax until one phrase solidified in green letters. Planetary core detonation sequence. Armed. His breath caught. "This isn't a beacon," he whispered. "It's a failsafe." Behind him, the walls trembled as distant explosions rattled the earth. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Time was bleeding away. Another message scrolled beneath the first. Manual activation required. No remote override. He swallowed hard. Of course it's manual. A final switch revealed itself at the base of the obelisk, recessed into the metal. Elias stared at it, then glanced back toward the tunnel where the sounds of combat grew fainter, scattered, distant. He could leave. He could call on the escape shuttle and pray it arrive before the detonation reached the surface. Or he could stay. Elias rested his hand on the switch. He thought of the creature's quiet acceptance, the weight of its gaze, the unspoken trust shared across an impossible alliance. He thought of the soldiers still advancing, of the fleet still hovering above, of every inch of ground soaked in sacrifice. He pulled a switch. The obelisk surged with blinding light. Symbols spiraled outward, racing along the walls, the floor, the very bedrock beneath. A deep tremor rose from the planet's core. Elias stood tall, shoulders squared, rifle slung across his back. "I'll hold the line," he said softly, as the chamber lit up around him, and the earth began to roar.